This is coq au vin, but not like you've seen it before. We've taken inspiration from some 3 Michelin-star chefs and broken it down step by step so you can recreate it at home. We've also invited one of them in to give it a taste. So the first step we're going to do is we're going to get our brine going. This is actually a step that we've added because we do know how to cook, you know. We're not just pretenders. It does come with premise from Michelin level chef Pierre Koffmann, legendary 3-star chef. In his book, Memories of Gascony, he actually makes coq au vin without marinating the chicken in red wine, which is the classic way. Now, the reason he does this is because he says that the marinating of the chicken, although it's very good for when you're using a rooster, which is the traditional bird of choice when we're using coq au vin. If you're not using a rooster, which very few people are these days, the wine can actually break down the chicken too much and give you break down the proteins and give you almost like a chalky finish. 5% salt solution, dissolve it in the water. We're going to add some peppercorns and some thyme and some bay leaf. And then let that infuse into the brine. So while that salt's just dissolving, we're just going to prep the chicken. Most people at home find it a bit trickier eating around the bone. So we're going to take the chicken off the bone mostly. And then we're going to roast off the bones and cook that in the coq au vin as well. So you get the flavour of all the bones, but you get the ease of eating, having all the breast boneless. So first of all, we're going to take the wings off. So it's just round the side, just taking we've got a bony knife here, just going round that ball joint at the bottom of the breast. Remove the wishbone from the chicken just by lifting up the back. What the brining is going to do, through osmosis, the salty water is going to enter the chicken and the water content from the chicken is going to then leach out. So the salty brine is all going to be impacted into the chicken. You're going to help to break down the proteins, giving us and mean that the chicken can retain some of that moisture, giving us effectively a juicier end product. So the legs have come off, the legs and the thighs. We're just going to separate them through the bone like so, and then with a heavy knife, we're just going to take the tops off of the legs. So we're just going to score around the top of the bone. This is going to mean that when the chicken cooks, the meat is going to slightly shrink down, giving us a nice presentation. So Pierre Koffmann, if you're not familiar with this legendary French chef, he's your favourite chef's favourite chef. Was that right? Yeah. Some of the most influential chefs of this century have been through his kitchen, including Marco Pierre White, Gordon Ramsay. They all trained in Pierre Koffmann's kitchens. And he opened a restaurant in Chelsea called Le Tante-Claire, which won 3 Michelin stars and was one of the first in the UK to have 3 stars. So once the salt's dissolved, we're going to pour that into the rest of the cold water. And that's the brine then ready for us to put our chicken into. So just going to cut the bones up from the chicken, just cut them up nice and small, put those onto a tray, and we're just going to roast those off while the chicken's marinating. Just in an oven set to 180, just because we don't want to waste it. So the chicken's going to brine now for 4 hours. So we're going to take this out of the brine, gently making sure that we leave all that skin intact. And we're going to give it a quick rinse in cold water, just to wash off that salty solution. We're going to lightly dust this in some flour before colouring it off in our saute pan. So this is a saute pan, so it's a wide-based pan. We're going to cook it in the same pan, so you want to choose something that's suitable for both colouring and also the braising. We want this on a medium-high heat. Too high and it's going to colour the chicken too quickly. We're trying to build a really deep golden crust on the skin, forming the base layer of flavour through the Maillard reaction. So we're going to start off here, just take our chicken, which is nice and dry, coat it lightly in the flour, and very similar to how we did the beef bourguignon, we want to make sure we tap off a lot of the excess flour. We're looking for a very light coating. If you leave too much on there, what you'll get is that the flour will just fall off and you'll end up with a really cakey mixture on the outside of your chicken. This caramelisation stage is really going to add so much flavour to your finished base. You really don't want to rush it. So we're obviously caramelising, we're starting on the skin side. That's going to be our presentation side, building that beautiful crust there. You can hear it's got a beautiful sizzle. It shouldn't be going crazy, shouldn't be going super dark straight away. It's going to keep rotating the chicken round. So wherever you put your meat in the pan, obviously when you put it in there, it's going to cool down that spot in the pan. So when you're searing anything, you do want to keep rotating it round, moving it to new areas. And this is going to help you develop a nice even crust. We are going to roast and cook our garnish separately to the rest of the braise. Roasted mushrooms, pearl onions, and then smoked bacon. Once we've removed the chicken, we're going to use the garnish to lift off the fond off the bottom of the pan, roast it in the same pan, set it aside to then add back into the dish later on once the chicken is fully cooked. That way we're going to get You're going to get the most out of all of these ingredients we're adding, rather than having a really overcooked mushroom and onion flavour in the finished dish. So once this is the sort of colour you're looking for in your chicken. You're going to get just a light colour on the bottom, especially with the breast. We're mostly looking for most of that colour on the skin. When the first coq au vins were made, it was predominantly made using wine, because the wine at the time was actually safer than the quality of the water. And the wine was so abundant in the area, hence where this dish primarily comes from, which is the Burgundy region, where the wine was so in abundance that it was an easy way to tenderize the chicken, and also safer than using water. So the original versions of the dish would have been purely chicken marinated in the wine and then slow cooked in the wine, and the sauce would be predominantly just the wine with no stock added. Now obviously, as this dish has been refined over the years, the addition of first and foremost the garnish and the vegetables was added. In the later versions, like the Koffmann version, the introduction of the stock to give a more refined finish to the sauce was added. So chicken's coming out now. Just going to keep our pan here on a low heat. First of all, we're going to go in with the bacon. The bacon will naturally separate as it starts to caramelise. So we're going to start it lower, let the water content evaporate, and then look to turn it up. Our chicken is still raw now, so we've just coloured the skin really hard, beautiful crust. The inside is still very much raw, so we're going to finish cooking this inside the stock. So don't go nibbling at this now. A lot of sauces, you would look to remove a lot of the fat, whereas here we've got the chicken fat in there now, we've got the bacon fat in there now, and we're going to use all that fat to caramelise the other vegetables, and then that eventually will emulsify into our finished sauce to add so much flavour. You could put them all in one pan together, but you are going to under caramelise the bacon, you're going to overcook the mushroom. Part of Michelin level cookery is really refining the cooking process and maximising the full potential of every flavour you're adding. While that bacon's caramelising, I'm just going to get our Mirepoix ready. It can be any selection of sort of hard vegetables and onions. We're going for carrots and shallots here. This is what Koffmann traditionally used. And they're both going to add really nice sweetness. So the bacon's now roasted. Next up, we're going to go in with our mushrooms. I'm going to cook these on a nice medium-high heat again. And we're not going to season the mushrooms to start with. We're going to put these just into the fat and get those roasting nice and high. We're just going to dice up our Mirepoix. So again, not crazy small, because we want to be able to pick out the chicken nicely, but we're going to cut it small enough so we get a nice surface area for caramelising. So once your mushrooms are about 50% of the way there, then just going to go in with our onions. At this stage, just going to add a touch of salt and pepper, and we're just going to get a little roasting on the onions, nothing crazy. So again, we're going to take out the veg, but leaving behind the fat. And now we're going to go in with our shallots and the carrots. They're going to go into the pan, nice low heat. And again, we've pretty much lifted off all the flavour from the bottom of the pan, but the water content in the vegetables is just going to help us get that last little bit off the bottom. And for the Bouquet Garni, so we've got the green part of the leek, which is almost like pretty much the unusable part. We're just going to fill that with a bay leaf and some thyme, effectively making almost like a little herby tea bag. So at this stage, I'm just going to pull out our bones that were roasting in the oven earlier. If there's any fat on the tray, you can just pour that into the veg that's colouring as well. Wouldn't be coq au vin without the red wine. So the red wine we're using here is Pinot Noir, which is the famous wine from the Burgundy region. And the reason why this wine is so good for this is because it adds a really nice acidity to the dish, and it has a low tanning, which means that when it reduces, it's nice and light. It doesn't go very jammy and in the final product. Although there's no true origin of where coq au vin came from, one of the regions where it was most dominant was in the Burgundy region because of their excess of this Pinot Noir. So next up, we're going to go with the garlic. So our veg is nicely roasted. Garlic's going to go in. Give that another couple of minutes just to sweat off nicely. Going to add a pinch of salt at this stage. It's very important to season as you're going. You don't want to just season at the very, very end of a dish, because you're going to get a salty finish. What we're trying to do is build levels of flavour throughout the cooking process. Stock is not traditional in the very early versions of coq au vin. But to refine the dish and make it more suitable for restaurants where the Bocuse and Koffmann both serve this dish, the stock basically turns this from being a peasant dish into a more humble, refined Michelin level dish. We've gone for chicken and beef, but it's going to add a beautiful silky mouthfeel to our finished sauce. The second alcohol we're going to add, which is, some say traditional, some not, but we found evidences of 2 3-Michelin-star chefs using it, is cognac, and then flame it straight away with a lighter or a blowtorch, or if you have a gas stove, you shoot a little flicker of the liquid over the side should light it. You don't need to follow the recipe exactly, but what we're teaching you here is a set of fundamental principles that you can apply not only to coq au vin, but to many other dishes. You know, the fact of roasting off the garnish separately, you could apply that to a Lancashire hot pot, you could apply that to beef bourguignon, you could apply it to many different things. It's all about building base level of flavour and then maximising every ingredient to its full potential. Just reducing that by half, and then we're going to go in with our red wine. So in the traditional French way, when a recipe calls for a bottle of wine, you're always going to save just a small glass to enjoy. Little chef's treat for later on. Bouquet Garni is going to go in now, and then once that's reduced by half, we'll then go in with the chicken and beef stock. So just going to reduce this by half. I've got my bones in there as well now. Also, the longer they've got in there, the more flavour they're going to give out. So then we're just going to add our stock into the pan, bring that up to a simmer before adding our chicken back in. It might look a little bit sort of like a melange of different vegetables and meats at the moment, but trust me, ooh, when it's done, you're never going back to chicken and whatever you normally do. So we're just going to nestle the chicken in. Ideally, you can leave the skin almost poking out the top. So this is going to now simmer for around about 20 to 30 minutes. Now the easiest way to tell if it's cooked is just to remove one of the pieces and use a food probe. Or if you're worried about that, you can just take out one of the legs or the thighs, because they'll take longer to cook, and just pierce it with a knife, and the blood and the juices that come out should run clean. If there's any red, then you need to cook it a little bit longer. You're going to top it off. Wouldn't be a Fallow video without a cartouche. Adds enough of a lid so the sauce doesn't reduce too quickly before the chicken is actually fully cooked. And once the chicken's cooked, I've got one little secret ingredient on my sleeve, which I'm not going to tell you about till later. Okay, so I've just turned the pan off on our coq au vin. So we just probe this to make sure it's hit 75 degrees. So now we're just going to turn it off, let it sit there for a few minutes just to relax, and just pick out the chicken gently. Let it drain off for a second. The chicken will get a tinge of sort of pink colouring from the wine, which is natural, that's going to happen. We're going to put the sauce back on a higher heat to reduce slightly and thicken. It's still like fairly loose. Now we don't want this to be really crazy thick, like almost like a gravy consistency. But we're looking for it to coat the back of a spoon, coat the chicken, but also still be fairly liquid and not over reduced. So now we're going to take this sauce and we're going to pass it through our fine strainer. Just leave that to drain slightly for a couple of minutes, just let all that juice come out of the bones. So our secret ingredient that I mentioned earlier, so this is a classic French way to finish it, and it comes from Pierre Koffmann's book. So we've got a raw chicken liver here. We've just trimmed it up slightly, taken off some of the sinews on it. And once the sauce has finished reducing, we're happy with the flavour, we're then going to place it into a blender and blend it with the chicken liver. This is going to add slight thickness to the sauce, a slight irony flavour to it, and it's going to help enrich the sauce slightly. But any sort of blender, jug blender, NutriBullet, should probably take around about a minute, maybe 2 minutes, depending on the speed of your blender. Obviously the colour is very light, almost like creamy looking, because obviously we've added loads of air into the sauce. As we put this back onto the stove and warm it through, that will darken slightly. I mean, obviously Koffmann is a very formidable figure, like literally a titan of Michelin cookery. We're very lucky he comes to the restaurant quite a bit. But every time he comes, we're still really excited to give him new dishes, or for him to try things we're working on, or in this case, try our version of his recipe. Because ultimately we only want to get better and keep improving things, and obviously getting his judgment and any tips he's got for us or any knowledge he can give us is only ever a benefit for us. So we're going to place our chicken back in. So our sauce is now coating our chicken. Now we're going to go place our garnish over the top. So we've got we've got our bacon, mushrooms, the onions, a good amount of parsley. This is le coq au vin. That's good. Chef.
Wow, that looks majestic, my friend.
What do you think the old bear's going to say about it?
Pierre the bear. Well, this is a dish close to his heart. I mean, that book for me was one of the... Did you read that when you were a young student?
I didn't actually, no. Okay. I watched a lot of him on telly though, and I've heard a lot of stories about him.
I like the addition of the liver. I think it's unique. I've never tried it with liver in before, so I'm excited. If there's one thing I know about Pierre the bear, he loves a bit of offal.
Yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm genuinely interested to see what he thinks of it. I hope we've done it justice.
Oh, that is good. That is
It's different.
absolutely delightful.
It's different to any coq au vins I've had before. So I really hope, but I've never nothing to compare it to. So I'm just hoping that he likes it.
So,
He's upstairs. We better go. Or he's gonna chill down. Just gonna chill out a bit. Our version of the coq au vin.
When you mean your version, you mean it's not the real one. You mean?
No, your recipe. We made only a couple of minor tweaks. We brined the chicken in a herb brine, and then we roasted it, fried the garnish separately, to then add it back in later. Cooked it in red wine and stock, and then we we reduced the sauce, blended in the liver, and then just remixed everything together.
Yeah. But it looks beautiful. The garnish is perfect. It's good. Really, and it tastes very nice. I've got to say, even if it's a chicken.
I'm never going back to cooking it without chicken livers. It's fantastic.
Did you serve this at Le Tanteclair or Koffmann?
Yeah, we did it from time to time. Yes, yeah. Awesome. Very beautiful. It looks nice, on the table. Look.
Yeah, it's a proper showpiece. I mean, if you put that down on a Sunday afternoon, it's going to be a good day.
It's perfectly cooked,
Good.
Yeah.
Good.